Chapter 33. Anders was asleep in the mud. Long wet grass curled over his face. Water droplets splashed on his forehead. When he woke, he could hear the sounds of bullfrogs and crickets and water passing over stones through a nearby stream. He smiled, thankful to be alive. He tasted water from the grass, caught rain droplets on his tongue. Then he opened his eyes, seeing the treetops of the forests and the clouds and the dark sky. Everything looked beautiful to him. He felt a surreal peacefulness that he had never felt before, as though every fear he had ever had now vanished.
"I love it!" he screamed. "I'm the fucking Buddha! I've reached enlightenment!" "Who's there?" a voice said. "It's me! It's Worm Boy!" He began laughing. "Is that you, Lance?" "I need help," Lance said. "Something we agree on," Anders said. "You need lots of help." "Listen, the car's wrapped around a tree. There's smoke coming from somewhere." "Be quiet," Anders said. "I was happy until you started." "Where are you?" "I'm in the grass, watching the clouds. The water tastes good here." "But I'm bleeding badly." Anders tasted another raindrop. "It's rather nice here." "Help me." "Try a raindrop," he laughed. "They're delicious." "Don't leave me here."
There was no answer after that. Anders had found glass in his knee. He sat up, pinching and pulling it with his fingers. He took mouthfuls of grass and chewed on them to stop himself from yelping in pain. It was damp and bitter, long and thick. Never had he so much grass in his mouth before, and finding it all ridiculous, he began laughing again.
"Stop laughing! Go for help!" "I'm in the grass though." "What was that?" "The grass. I'm in it."
He pulled out the glass, studying it between his fingers. His pants were ripped. Warm blood ran down his leg, and suddenly the grass in his mouth tasted rancid. He spat. He crawled away silently through the long grass, appearing on an open patch of gravel.
"There you are,"
Lance said, his very pale face staring through the driver's window.
"Go for help."
But Anders sat on the gravel, ignoring him, ducking out of his sling, undoing the knot with his teeth, standing and then tying it tightly around his knee. The blood held and he limped forward, staggering towards what was left of the car.
"Are you going for help?"
Lance said breathlessly. Again, Anders ignored him and began packing his stuff, bunching shirts and pants together with his cuffed hands, stuffing them into his backpack, frowning at Big D's muddy boot prints over everything, shaking off shattered glass. He found an old cap from his days on the farm with Lindsay. He wore it and dragged his bag along the floor, following a dirt slope towards the roadside.
"Where are you going?"
Lance said, watching him in the car's wing mirror, his wet fringe flat to his forehead, his shirt soaked with sweat.
"Don't leave me here," he said. "Don't you dare."
At the top of the slope, as far as Anders could see along the road, were rubber tyres and bent pipes, black oil and skid marks, and broken glass. And somewhere between all that, a stiff-looking, twisted body. He paused for a moment, looking around for other cars. But as before, the road was empty. He then looked over his cuffed hands. Lance was still talking, the car engine ticking, the oil tank dripping.
"Get me out," Lance said. "I keep smelling smoke."
Leaving his backpack on the roadside, Anders rolled down the slope, in the mud, and got up, looking filthy. He returned to the car, ignoring Lance's stare.
"Help me!"
He continued around the car, circling it, looking at Big D through the smashed windscreen, still hanging in his seatbelt with tree branches touching his face, covering him, almost hiding him.
"He's fine," Lance said. "Stop staring and get help."
Anders came to Lance's window now, watching his trembling hands, covering damp, fleshy patches of tattered genitalia.
"Those firecrackers exploded on my dick and balls," Lance said. "You must get help."
Anders said nothing. He stared Lance straight in the eye. He raised his cuffs.
"What?"
"The keys."
"No way. We're taking you in."
"That's not happening," Anders said, smiling, liking the confidence in his voice. "You want help and I want the keys. Now give me the fucking keys." Lance reached slowly into his wet pocket, groaning with each movement, head back, teeth showing.
"My dick hurts," he said, passing Anders the keys. "You need to help me."
Anders put the keys between his teeth, leaning over the cuffs, unlocking them while Lance watched, sweating.
"Look at my cast," he said, showing him the cracks. "My cast is redundant, a meaningless aid to my broken arm. Nothing but a shell, as broken as the car you sit in."
He slung the cuffs high over the trees.
"Look at it," he said, poking the cast. "Was it clever handcuffing me like that?"
He pulled away the cast, revealing a bandaged arm.
"Well?"
He waved it about, watching it crumble. Clouds of white powder came from it, blanketing Lance's face, adding to his paleness.
"It's procedure," Lance said, choking on the powder. "That's all. We had to... we just follow procedure."
Anders dropped the cast on Lance's groin.
"And how's that working for you?" "Stop messing with me." "I will," Anders said, now climbing across the back seats into the front. "I just need my stuff."
He leaned over Big D's legs in the dark. He opened the glove box compartment, feeling around it blindly, taking one thing out at a time. A pot of cherry Vaseline, a candle, a demonic mask, an AC/DC album, and a butt plug.
"They're not mine," Lance said.
Finally, Anders came across the plastic bag. He took his paracetamol and played the AC/DC album, laughing as Highway to Hell began blasting out.
"Ironic song," he said,
picking up a torch, holding it in Lance's face.
"You're so white," he said, falling out of the car. "I can't stop laughing about it." "That's enough," Lance spoke furiously. "I've had enough."
He leaned from his window, watching Anders laugh on the gravel.
"Turn that music off,"
he said, his lips all thin and purple looking.
"My piece is hanging on by a thread."
His eyes followed Anders as he stood.
"By a thread,"
he repeated, thrusting his fingers over his groin.
"By a thread." "Yeah," Anders said. "You need a doctor." "Well, what have I been saying?" "This is what I'm saying. You need help. You got a phone?" "Yeah, I got a phone." "Hand it over then." "Why?" "Hanging on by a thread, right? Need an ambulance, right?"
Lance was groaning and reaching into his wet pocket again.
"Make the call quickly," he said. "Take it."
Anders leaned on the car, keying numbers into Lance's phone.
"Did you say by a thread?" "Stop talking, just make the damn call." "Copy it, Lance. I got this." No, where are you going?"
Anders was limping up the slope, pausing now and then, listening to his phone ringing in the distance, while Lance extended his neck, as much as possible, screaming in agony, eyes following him along the roadside.
"Put your bag down and get back here," he said.
But Anders continued, his wet pumps squelching with each step he took, staggering forward slowly, following the sound of his phone.
"What's the idea?"
Lance was screaming, yelling, shouting,
"Come back here! Come back here! Come back here!"
His voice battled with the music of AC/DC, growing fainter now, as Anders walked the road, stepping over carnage, crushed glass, snapped windscreen wipers, a car door, a bent exhaust pipe. His phone was there too, ringing, spinning and vibrating on the floor. He took it and kept going, passing more carnage, more glass, until he came to Maniac's curled up body.
"It's me, Disciple,"
he whispered, looking into Maniac's glaring eyes, nodding at the Richter's grin on his face, as though he'd been laughing right to the very end.
"Here."
He knelt down beside him and switched off Lance's phone, placing it in his stiff, curved hand.
"Contact the clown," he said. "It's mission complete."
He then rested a hand on Maniac's forehead and closed his eyes for him.
"I better go,"
he said, standing up, and he dropped off the road again, his dark, muddy figure disappearing into the forest.